Welcome back to a Thursday Northwest afternoon. These women are in your living rooms every night, bringing you breaking news and information about your community. But what's happening in their own living rooms?
How does interviewing world leaders impact their own little worlds and the lives of their kids?
Well, today we'll find out firsthand from three prominent media moms, ABC News correspondent Cokie Roberts, and from KOMO News 4 anchors Kathi Goertzen and Margo Myers.
Please welcome Cokie, Kathi, and Margo.
Hi, you two.
Hey, guys. Don't like being on this end of it, do you, Kat? I know you don't. How about you, Cokie? Is this uncomfortable for you?
It's much more fun to be where you're sitting.
Oh, okay. Because you're in control, right? You don't know what's going to happen this way.
You don't know what you're going to do.
Well, what we want to start with, though, is there was a recent little clip that we pulled from This Week with David Brinkley regarding something about age, women getting older. Barbara Walters has said women don't get older, they just get blonder. And there was something you said dealing with age, and Sam had quite a comeback. Let's take a look.
Any lady of a certain age has had the experience of being told, we will not hire you because you are a woman. Now, that experience is many years ago.
You're still a spring chicken in my book, kid.
Thank you, there's.
A spring chicken. But do you worry about age discrimination? It seems like men can get older on television. Men can be ugly on television. But women, it feels like they aren't allowed to do either of those things.
Well, it's very interesting because what happened was women of my age, which is 51, came into journalism and broadcasting as a whole generation of women. And we don't know how long we're going to be allowed to stay on the air. There are just a few people before us, people like Barbara Walters, who has been a fabulous trailblazer, but she has been a singular woman. She was there all by herself for many years. We're a whole group, and we have no idea how long this is going to go on. My big problem is that I am absolutely terrified of anesthesia, so I can't have a facelift.
But don't you think that men, though, have gotten more and more concerned themselves with how they, I mean,
yes.
That's been my experience.
They do have facelifts and look sort of silly.
They're not afraid of anesthesia.
But do you worry about that, too? Because that's something a boss might hang over your head. There are, dozens of young women who would...
Well, they can't hang it over our heads out loud and for the record because it's illegal.
But they do it. Don't you feel that that's out there?
Well, I think that's been the case for a long time, but I think because of women like Barbara and others that it's changing. I really do believe it is.
Less of an issue now than it used to be.
We'll
maybe.
see.
But Cokie, when you and this group of women to whom you referred came into the business, was there a greater challenge for all of you to prove yourselves as serious news people than there might have been for your male counterparts?
Absolutely. First of all, we were told out loud and for the record, even though it was barely illegal then, we don't hire women to do that. Women are not authoritative. Women can't deliver the news. Nobody would believe it coming from you. Men would have to work for you, and we can't have that, can we? So it was very explicitly stated, and we had to just break down those barriers. There was no question about it. That we did do for you.
Thank you.
And we wish you'd be a little more grateful. That's right.
We're eternally grateful. Trust me on this.
But it is something, I remember, this is like 10, 15 years ago. One of my first stories was I had to cover the pet beat all the time. Before I could do the fires and the murders and things like that, you had to say, oh, yes, bundle your pets up for winter. Did you have to...
People probably paid more attention to that, though.
They probably did. But did you have to prove yourself, too, when it came to before you could cover hard news?
I definitely think so, but not necessarily, I don't think, because I was a woman. I think that in starting out in this business, you have to prove yourself regardless of your gender. But, I mean, now they have the guy doing the pet beat. I mean, they had the animal guy, so it's not necessary. I think it's changing because of people like Cokie.
But it's still true that there is not a single woman network anchor by herself sitting behind a desk, and there are not women at the tops of news organizations. So there is still a way to go.
Very often the women are sent to interview the women, and the men are sent to
but
interview
that's fun.
the men.
Sure.
You'd rather do that.
Cokie, you mentioned Barbara Walters and her pioneering role, and I know Kathi has recently interviewed some of the ABC folks for a package that was done around here recently. But give us your take on somebody that we all see weekly in Seattle, and that's Diane Sawyer.
Well, Diane was a couple of years behind me at Wellesley College, a very well-educated person, and she is a really very intelligent, smart, hardworking, as well as quite beautiful, which we can all see, person to be on the air.
Is she always as calm and collected as she appears to be on camera?
Well, I don't work in the same place with her. I
Right.
work in Washington and she's in New York, so I don't see her in those moments before going live on the air. But my impression is that she's a pretty calm person.
We're watching the interview you did with her recently, Kath. Did she seem like a $6 million woman when you got to meet her? Is there an air of that at all?
I think so. And I asked her if she gets nervous, and she said she definitely does. And to this day, still will wonder, why am I on television? And I told her that it was fairly obvious, but she still gets nervous. She was delightful.
We're going to take a quick break. And up next, our guests have covered scores of fascinating stories. And still ahead, we're going to find out which ones have left the biggest impressions. Plus, we'll hear how some alert viewers have picked up on the upcoming changes in Kathy's life.
Welcome back. Cokie Roberts is with us today from ABC News, along with Kathy Goertzen and Margo Myers from KOMO News 4. And we have a phone call on the line. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, my name's Elisa from Renton, and my question's directed to all three of you. Have any of the stories you've had to cover interfered with your personal beliefs or made you feel uncomfortable?
Margo, you want to start?
I think that sometimes you get thrown into situations where you're uncomfortable. But I think that's part of being a reporter, and you just kind of have to deal with that and say, I'm here to do a job, and keep your objectivity and treat it that way. I mean, there's a lot of times where you're uncomfortable, especially if you're in a situation where you're interviewing a mother whose son may have just been murdered. Sure. That can never be a comfortable situation, but you just do it the best you can and be as compassionate as you can in situations like that.
How about you, Kath?
Well, I think it's definitely hard to be unbiased in some situations, especially in situations where children have been abused or something, and you want to, you don't necessarily want to wait for the justice system to take its pace. Mm-hmm. But I think there are times where you have to really make sure that you're balanced in how you approach a story. There's definitely times.
Who have you ever wanted to go off on, though, and just say, would you just be quiet?
Well, I don't know.
Besides Sam, okay?
It's not so much individuals as whole rooms full of people. There are times now in Congress with this sort of hyper rhetoric that's going on right now, where you really do want to get to a point where you stand in the gallery and say, I don't care who started it, I'm stopping it. The old mother line.
Yesterday, he told everybody to shut up.
Sit down and shut up.
Well, Good Morning America this morning was talking about a nastier America.
I thought that was a very interesting segment.
I did
I think
too.
it's true.
Yeah.
I am shocked at some of the mail that I get, at the comments people feel free to say to you.
Like what? What would hurt you that you...
It's not even just being hurt. It's not a question of being hurt so much as the tone of the mail is not constructive criticism. It's saying, basically, you rotten, horrible human being. And nothing is worse than the computer mail, the internet, where people are anonymous and they feel some complete freedom to just say any old dreadful thing. There really is something to be said for good manners.
And doesn't that hurt the most? We were talking about that before, is you'll get 10 great letters and all of a sudden you get this one that slams you. And do you take that home with you? Is that what you do?
Oh yeah, you can't help but do that. I mean, that's always the one that gets your
I
attention.
now have a form letter that says your mother would be ashamed of you.
Kathy, tell us about the luncheon today where Cokie spoke, and I know it was very important to you.
Cokie did a great job, and it was really a tremendous. Well, no, she really was good, and it was a tremendous success. This was a fundraiser for the YWCA, of which I've been a part for several years now, and we get about 1,500 women and a few enlightened men, I think was the way it was put, in a room.
Look
and
at that crowd.
Talk about the YWCA, and then we ask people to write a check. Yeah. And we just got the results. $282,000 was raised at that luncheon today for the YWCA.
That's wonderful. Why is this project so close to your heart? This is something you've been involved with for a lot of years.
Because the YWCA does work that is the most beneficial for women and children and families who are in need in this community, and you can really see results, and it's just been tremendously rewarding for me to be a part of it. And
what a successful
lunch.
We're
proud of you for being so involved.
They do domestic violence, they do job training, they do child care, they do taking care of homeless women. I mean, these are all the arguments that we're having as public policy arguments in Washington. And if, in fact, you can have organizations like the Y that will do these things, then you can get it off of government shoulders. But that does then mean that people have to contribute and have to contribute big.
Paul in our audience has a question or a comment. Paul?
Ms. Roberts, the age of nude, is it going to make your job more entertaining covering Congress?
Well, Congress has always been pretty entertaining to cover, but it is certainly more interesting right now. There's so much going on, and there are a lot of new characters to get to know. But yes, definitely, this is good for business.
Around here, Kathy, at this station, I know I used to read some of our station call sheets from time to time, and some of the comments from viewers were interesting because they seem to notice things other than the content of our news broadcasts.
No.
Kathy Goertzen's new dress, Kathy's new hairstyle, new lipstick color, the new ring on her finger.
Oh yeah, they're very observant.
And then recently they've all called and said, when's the baby due? When's the baby due?
The baby's due the 1st of June, so I'm on the final stretch here.
How are you feeling?
I feel good. I feel good. It's, the 11 o'clock program is a little difficult sometimes. You have to, I get Dan, tell me when it's time to talk, wake me up. But
it's going to be a lot more difficult once the baby's here.
That's true. That's true. That's very true.
And everybody's wondering about the new ring, so they wonder about Rick. And Rick is a guy who was a photographer here.
Right.
And so you met here at the station?
Right, we did. This is where we met, and he's since gone on into sales now, and he is terrific. And
he's an incredible guy.
He really is a big help, and I think he'll be a great dad.
But were you sort of keeping that under wraps for a while because you don't want to reveal that you're dating somebody in the office?
Well, you know how it is. Office romances are always kind of a little unique, but we work in different offices now, so we barely see each other.
We'll take a phone call. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, hello. I was just wondering, when you work like holidays, and my husband's gone on holidays a lot too, and that really bothers him. Does that bother you guys to be away from your children and not be there for those holidays?
That's a really good point, because I always thought because I was Jewish, that's why they made me work every Christmas. But that's not it. They make everybody work every Christmas. So is that tough for you, Margo?
Oh yeah, and especially working weekends, so it seems like you get a lot of holidays in there. And
How old is your son, Margo?
Nick is 4, and like he just got an invitation to a birthday party today, and it's on a weekend, and gee, his dad's working that weekend too, so I don't know if he's going to be able to go to the birthday party.
That is a good example of where women are still in a bind, because often the chance that they'll give to a woman to anchor or to do something that's different, that's a more elevated job, is on a holiday or a weekend or August, and you really end up making a choice then between your job and job advancement and promotion or being home with your family for the holiday.
Look at what Marcia Clark's going through right now, case in point on that.
We'll take a short break. Coming up next, Cokie interviews the top brass. Plus, Kathi and Margo share one of the most emotional experiences of their careers. We'll be right back.
Story that Margo and Kathi covered, and we were all involved in it here at KOMO, was the death of the 4 firefighters in the recent arson. And there was the memorial that you participated in, and let's take a look at that and then talk about your feelings that day.
Bring a personal message from the President of the United States, the White House, Washington, January the 10th, 1995.
Very emotional day. Was that a tough one for you, Margo, Kathi?
For me, I think it was one of the most difficult. It was one of the most tragic and emotional events that I've ever been a part of. But I thought our role was to just simply be watching it along with the rest of the community, and that's how we felt. I mean, that's what we did. We didn't have to commentate. We didn't have to say anything. We were touched and moved, and it was a very tough day.
It was, especially to be down there. And I would talk to a couple of the relatives of the firefighters would come out, and I think they just wanted somebody to talk to, and they recognized a familiar face, and they would come over and talk about things that they had learned. And it was really hard because I would be in tears, and then the next thing you'd hear in your minutes, Margo, we're coming to you in 3 minutes. And you just...
Yeah, because I was on the street and they were handing me hankies because you're putting down the microphone and you're crying and wiping the mascara and then going back to be on TV.
So it was really hard.
There were a lot of tears that day.
Seattle fire trucks went past on 6th Avenue on their way downtown, I saw one young woman in civilian clothes who stood right on the curb as the fire engines passed, and she saluted and held that salute as the trucks went by. It was a very, very touching moment.
It was a touching moment, but I think it also is something of which this community can be very proud, because the way that we remembered those 4 men and what's happened since has really been a tribute.
Robert in our audience with a question or comment. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I was wondering, have any of y'all ever been in a life-threatening situation, joined an interview, or?
Times when you wondered.
Like when? During the interview with Ross Perot?
Right, that one I thought he was going to pick up a chair and start hitting me. But the closest I've been is I was in Greece for several years and covered a lot of anti-American demonstrations during that period. And some of those got very hairy. And, you know, there I was. I was a young woman with just a tape recorder, not a big camera crew around me. I was doing it for radio, and there were some moments that were pretty scary.
But did Ross really get angry with you?
Was that frightening?
Yes. Which one? Both.
Ross, though, talk about that. Why would that be frightening? Ross Perot.
Well, because it was Nightline, and he was getting very testy with me, and he was not appreciative of the line of questioning that I was following, which was, it was just dreadful. It was asking him if he planned to run for president on the day he qualified on 50 state ballots.
Shame on
and
you.
I know, and he got so testy that you didn't know whether he was going to get up and leave. And so, what do you do if he does get up and leave?
Are you thinking, I'm going to have to ad-lib for another 20 minutes?
So it got very tense in that studio.
I think that the scariest night I had was when the riots spread from LA up to Seattle, and I ended up on the streets of downtown Seattle in the middle of the night, in the middle of a riot. And But I think we all try to not put ourselves in
Right.
situations where we're going to be in danger. Nothing is really worth.
We had gone down to
worth
Panama
that.
after the invasion, just a couple days after, and when we got down there, the first thing, we went through the first checkpoint, and we could hear gunfire, sniper fire in the background. It was kind of like, oh, welcome to Panama.
Yeah, here we go.
And then, yeah, and you knew, boy, we were just right in there, so.
My reaction is to be right out of there.
Yes, exactly.
Marissa in our audience has a question. Marissa?
This is for Kathi. What was your first job?
Well, actually, I'm kind of a rare bird in that my first real, I worked in Spokane as an intern at a station there, but my first real job was here at KOMO, and that was almost 15 years ago.
You were, what, a reporter trainee?
I was a reporter trainee. I actually did some work on elections and political coverage before I moved into the newsroom.
Did you ever dream that you'd be the main anchor then when you started here as a reporter trainee? No. Yeah.
No.
We'll take a phone call. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, caller.
Hello.
Hi there.
I just wanted to compliment both Margo and Kathi, and you just brought up a subject that makes my voice very shaky, the memorial for our...
Firefighter Memorial.
Yeah, for our firemen. But I wanted to tell you how fortunate I think we all are to have the lady commentators, the lady newscasters that we do have and enjoy here, because you carry off the job with style and grace, and I really appreciate it.
How kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice comment. Who is the biggest influence on your career, would you say?
My husband. I really didn't expect to have a career. I came out of school in a time when women could afford to stay home, and I really expected just sort of have a couple of years of some interesting job or other, get married and have children and do good works in the community.
But did you think about a political career ever?
No, I really didn't. People ask me that a lot because my family is a political family, but because I fell in love with Steve when I was 18 years old, and he was always going to be a journalist. It would have been inappropriate for me to do anything in politics, so I really didn't.
And those of you who see or read U.S. News and World Report see Steve Roberts' name, where he is he a senior writer?
Senior writer. Those of us of a certain age get to be senior.
You took the name Roberts, but what is your real whole name?
Mary Martha Corrine Morrison Claiborne Boggs Roberts.
Woo!
Wow.
It's one of those
We're only an hour show,
names.
Cokie. So how do Kathi and Margo manage juggling a family and demanding careers? We're going to get that take on their lives in just a moment.
And Cokie's at a different stage of motherhood. We're going to find out how she's handling an empty nest. Up next.
The Beatles, they were a phenomenon in the 60s. Now, of course, they're legendary. Do you have any interesting or funny stories about the Beatles? Any Beatle experiences you'd like to share? Or are you just perhaps a Beatles freak? If so, we'd love to hear from you. Just call us at 421-LIVE immediately following today's show. Welcome back. Dick in our audience has a question for Cokie Roberts. Go ahead, Dick.
Cokie, being the daughter of a very prominent Congress person during a different time in Congress, how do you relate to that as a child in that situation, as a reporter in the new Congress, so to speak?
Well, I've been around Congress all of my life and have a tremendous respect for the institution and care about the institution deeply. So I don't like it when people trash it and demean it. And I don't like it when people inside the institution misbehave. So that those are sort of the parameters that I'm operating from. But I have to tell you, as someone who cares about the institution, I think it's a very good thing that we've had a change of party in terms of the institution, because it can get fossilized and set in ways, and there can be an arrogance of power. It's not that any individual is an evil individual or any individual is not working very hard to do the right thing. But you need to have a change every so often in any party system. And I think that for the institution that I love, it's a good thing to have the change. That's not a public policy statement, it's an institutional statement.
We've got somebody on the line who wants to talk to you. Hi, caller.
Yes, hello. Kathy, this question is for Kathy. I'm a teenage mom, and knowing the demands of motherhood, I wanted to know, how do you juggle being a mother with your full-time career?
I don't know sometimes.
It's not easy, is it?
It's tough. I think, I grew up with a mother who raised 4 daughters and worked full-time. And that was at a time when women really, it wasn't okay for them to work full-time. And I watched how hard she works. And I've really tried to set priorities so that I can spend time with my children and still do a good job. But I really don't think that women can do it all anymore. I think that you have to give in some areas. And I'm lucky because I have a great husband, and I live close to the station, so I'm able to get back and forth several times during the day. And
you go through the same thing, and you talked about the guilt a little bit with maybe Nick can't go to the birthday party, upcoming birthday party. You keep him out of the limelight, too. Explain your reasons behind that. That's why we're not showing photos of the children, to respect your wishes on that. But explain why.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, we cover the news. We don't, we see the things that can happen, and I think that I just like to play it safe that way.
So they don't recognize your child. Maybe
Yeah.
I'd
it's safer.
be happy to show you pictures of my children.
Well, yours are out of the nest, right? How old are your children?
26 and 24, and I have to give you heart, you young women, because the truth is I was working very hard for the years that they were young, and not when they were babies, but when they were 6, 7, 8 and up. And they are wonderful adults. They are terrific human beings, and I think children know when you are trying your best to be with them and to take care of them and also to respect them. And I really do feel strongly that that's 9/10 of it, is that you not just love them to pieces, which of course we do, but that you respect them and respect their time and their wishes as well as your time, and understand that you can learn from them as well as them learn from you. And, you can live through it, although there are days when I don't know how I did it.
How did it feel, though, Cokie, when you received the honor of Mother of the Year? Was that in '91?
No one asked my children, I can assure you.
Did it surprise you?
Well, it was a very nice thing, but I have to tell you, there are 2 Mother's Day committees. One is real and one is fake. I got the award from the fake one. My mother this year, however, is Mother of the Year from the real, National Mother of the Year from the real Mother's Day committee.
Did your life change a lot when your kids left the nest?
Well, sure it did, because you stop, even when they went off to college, and I was still responsible for them more than I am now. The business of not having the 3 o'clock bell ring in your head every afternoon, and having the kids get home from school just as you were on deadline, and all of the hysterical stories that my colleagues can tell of overhearing me saying, Rebecca, you have a responsibility to go to piano lessons, all of that. But or talking them down when the dog's hair had been cut and having the most ridiculous conversations trying to get them off the phone. But
you do it all again.
The business of women can't do it all. Sure you can. You just can't do it all at the same time.
Well, that's a nice way to end. And we wish we could talk with you for another hour, but we're out of time. So thank you all for being here today and sharing your stories. We'll be back in a moment and tell you about our next Northwest Afternoon.